Greetings and welcome to Office Hours with Dr. G. I am your host, Dr. G, and I am so glad that you could keep our appointment. I'm excited about tonight's presentation because it's an area of discussion, topics that are near and dear to my heart. Tonight, I'm welcoming a first-time guest, José Juan Rosas, whom I've called a nature whisperer. He's also the Incidental Shaman. Tonight, Jose will share his lifetime of expanded consciousness based upon his intuitive relationship with nature. Jose was born of the original people of the land in Michuacan, Mexico. He came to the U.S. at age 8 and subsequently grew up in Michigan, New Mexico, and Florida. A stonemason by trade, Jose has domiciled at Alaska, as well as other places, and has led a fascinating life of miracles and a spiritual connection with all forms of nature, regardless of the location. And we're going to hear about some of his experiences. And this has been going on since he was about 3 or 4 years of age. He has learned that we are all composed of the elements fire, water, earth, and sky, and need but to listen to nature to experience our inherent connectedness. José Juan Rosas and his wife Tamara currently reside in Michigan or at Michigan and are parents of 1 son, 3 daughters, and have 2 grandchildren. I would like to welcome to Office Hours with Dr. G for the first and hopefully not the last time, tonight's guest, José Juan Rosas, the Incidental Shaman. Welcome. How are you? I'm going to bend down for a minute because I just knocked my speaker off my desk and I need to pick it up. So it's down here. Just give me a minute. Well, maybe I won't, y'all. It's down there. Can you hear me all right? Okay. All right. Let me get you back on. How are you?
Welcome. Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. And listen to y'all out there. Yes, we're going to get the obvious elephant in the room. I completely big chopped on Saturday. Okay. We're going to get that out of the way. I think some of y'all, I don't know if I was on the air back in 2015. If I was, I had done this then. So this is me, y'all, and still me. I want you to share. Come on. Some people don't want to come on certain subject matters if we're not talking about something specific, but all of us have, a spiritual connectiveness and spirituality, I believe, over the past 15 years, 20 years has become more of a thing that people are not afraid to talk about. Sometimes people hide their experiences and, shut it away and are afraid to talk about it for fear of being shunned by, their family and their friends, and people think, you've lost your mind or something like that. When in reality, most of us, and hopefully, we can touch on this, have had some level of spiritual, or what we might call psychic connections throughout our lives, unexplainable things. And then we kind of brush them away because, it just it's not something that's in our mainstream normally area of learning. Folks don't, talk about, we talk about religion and, we talk about God and whatever denominations or whatever belief systems you happen to be part of. But those things that are like the unexplained things, those are the things that we don't get into. But tonight, I'm so happy to have you here at on the show, because we had fascinating conversation a couple of weeks ago that at first our initial connection was, and you could tell our audience this, our initial connection, the reason why you reached out to me had nothing to do with this.
Exactly.
what you discovered and why you reached out to me initially.
Exactly. Yes. It was definitely an experience that, I knew I needed to have with somebody, because I had been searching for people just like you, and just like Taj. And so it's been a long time coming, and it was a pleasant experience talking to you that first time, where I could just pour myself out to you, and it's like I already knew you from somewhere. And so to me, it's been a long time coming, and the door is finally here, and I'm walking through it, and I'm here to speak uh, on the things that have transpired through my life, in hopes that maybe some people can relate to it, and perhaps maybe either gain some insight or knowledge, or maybe they have some insight or knowledge they can possibly share with me, also. So you ready to begin? We can start at my birthplace. So
Well, you know
okay.
what? Before you get there, I
Mhm.
want you to, like you said, you were looking for someone, but when you initially reached out to me, we were talking about nationality and
Right.
birthright. So
Oh
that
yes.
part, like most
Oh my
people,
goodness. Yes. So
what you
when I
discovered.
got here to the States, I was about 8 years old, and so we weren't allowed to go to school until we learned English somewhat, so we could carry a conversation. Hey, I need to go to the bathroom. Hey, I need something to eat, or whatever the situation would have been. And so my mom and dad made us speak only English, even if it was just broken English, in the house for about 3 months. And so during that time, we watched, uh, movies like, John Wayne and stuff like that, or Bugs Bunny Roadrunner show and stuff like that. And so we picked up the English language pretty good and pretty quickly. So once we picked it up, our parents put us in school, and they put me in the first grade, obviously because the language barriers and all. So they put me in the first grade, and we had show and tell one day, and the teacher said, boys and girls, we're going to have show and tell today, and we're going to use Jose as an example to show, the intellect with different races, nationalities. And I was like, whoa, so I'm going to be on show and tell, And so she goes, okay, Jose, would you please stand up and stand in front of me right here, and we're going to talk. And I said, okay. So I stood up in front of her, and she put her hands on my shoulder, and she goes, okay, class, today we're going to teach you as to why uh, races that are not white, that are black, or that are brown, um, will not have the same capabilities or same choices as you will when you get older. And she says, if you notice on Jose's head, she says, you will notice that his eyes are up higher on his head. And she says, therefore making the area of the brain where the brain would sit smaller, so his brain capacity is not as big, therefore not having the same brain capacity that somebody who is white would have. And so she, when she started saying stuff like that, I was like, well, wait a minute, I just showed up here from another country, and in a matter of 3 to 4 months I've learned how to speak your language, and I'm an example right now as to why I won't have a good enough, what would you say, a good enough persona, as a nationality where I come from, to say that I would have to, the same capabilities as somebody who is white would. And so she says, so if you notice that also their eyes are a little bit further on their head to the outside. And she says, therefore, again, not allowing enough brain capacity to grow there, and therefore not having the same brain capacity as everyone else does. And so right then off the bat, I automatically knew the system itself failed me right away off the bat. I mean, just coming right off the airplane from Mexico, it's like the system failed me right away, and I was like, wait a minute, so to me that completely made no sense that she would even use me as an example, and then knowing that I already had those barriers in language that I had to cross over, and at the same time go and learn whatever ABCs and 1, 2, 3s and colors and everything that they're learning in the first grade. It didn't make no sense to me. It did not make no sense to me. And but here goes to something to prove is that if I'd have stayed in Mexico and I'd have followed from the time they put me in school to go to school, which they down there they start you pretty early, like 3 or 4 years old, they make you go to school. And so if I'd have stayed there during that time and gone to school, I mean, I would have been that much more ahead of schedule than everybody here. Mm-hmm. So it was, to me, it was, I was dumbfounded at the information that she was sharing with the class.
And you were what, 8? You were about 8 years old.
I was about 8 years old, yeah, during that time.
And you were smart enough to know that that was a bunch of bull that was being spoken, and
exactly.
And you were being used as the brunt of her ignorance.
Exactly.
Right. And so, with that in mind, and I want to back up, because when we had our conversation, and you shared with me your life, apart from your parents for a while, and and your experiences. I want to go back there.
Okay.
Can you share?
Sure. So right at about the time when I turned about 2 years old, something happened. My dad was involved with some wrong people, and he ended up getting murdered. And so my grandpa and his sons, not being educated well enough in Mexico, because not everybody goes to school, first of all, but not being well educated enough to sit down and read a newspaper and make heads or tails or up and downs. And so what grandpa and his sons did is they read the newspaper. And when they read the newspaper, they fumbled through it, and they automatically assumed that it was my mom who had killed my father. And that wasn't the case, because she was cleared by the detectives. They did a whole newspaper write-up on her and everything, and they cleared her. And so during that time, it was not good for any of us, because here my grandpa and his sons felt that my mom was at fault, or that she had killed my dad, and so they wanted to kill my mom. So the detective told mom right away. He told her, he says, Cecilia, you need to go ahead and leave your kids here with family members, and go ahead and go to the States and start working and start sending money back to the families that you leave them with. And so that's what she ended up doing. That's what she ended up doing. And so, it's funny that she, whenever she talks about this to me still, she says, she goes, so do you remember the last things that I said to you? Do you remember? I said, Mom, I remember every word, and I tell her every time. And I said, you realize that I watched you go over that hill. I said, and that changed everything. I say, because not only had I lost my dad, now I lost my mom. And so.
And you were?
I was probably 2.5. About 2.5. people say, well, how can a 2-year-old, possibly even, remember that, or how can, even how can they even recollect that? But you got to understand that, when you see the last person that you honor in your life, that's your elder, that's your parent, leave like that, you got to understand that there's got to be something greater and bigger than they are still,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so, um, yeah, it was a tough time for everybody in the family, I would say.
So you were left with your aunt and uncle on your mother's side, you and your
On my
siblings.
dad's side.
Oh, and actually on your dad's side.
On my
Okay.
dad's side,
On your
and he
dad's side.
was he was one of the ones that wasn't, you know, after my mom to try to kill her.
Okay.
So they left. She left. Let me see, three of us with them, and then the other three, four went with Grandpa Rosas,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah,
And
so
you were the
it
youngest.
totally turned life upside down for us.
Yes. Yes. So you were the youngest.
Yeah. Well, my younger, I had a baby sister still.
Oh, okay. So you're next to
Yes,
the young.
yes, yeah, yeah. I had a little sister, Nora. Nora.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
So you all were
And
all left with relatives. Your mother came to what we call the States, but because you really were already in America, a
mhm.
Mexican, and your life with them. Your mother was sending resources as she was working and to try to, to make sure that you all were taken care of. But what was happening?
The money wasn't, being spent on the kids. The money was actually being spent on weekend parties, stacks of beer, and trucks and vehicles that the person that was purchasing them couldn't even drive or didn't know how to drive.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was there was a lot going on. Um, so so during that time, um, we went without, food for long periods of time, and we didn't have any real clothing, no real shoes, just barely a rag for a pair of pants, and so constantly hungry. So we were, I was constantly being sent to my grandpa's house, to probably get fed a little bit here and there, and so I remember it was probably about 8 to 10 miles of a walk from town to Grandpa's ranch out in the place they call the Las Pilas, the Cliffs. And so we went out there. I was walking with my uncle, and when you come at the edge of this cliff, there's a cliff, and at the edge of the cliff, there's a mesa there, and you got to walk down from the mesa all the way down, almost about 3/4 of a mile to a mile. And from that cliff back to town is nothing but forest. And from the cliff forward to Grandpa's house at the bottom of the river is deserty, is all deserty. And so my uncle was walking me to Grandpa's house one day to drop me off, and he looked at me. He goes, "You see these little plants right here?" He says, "These plants right here, they're the little berries are really sweet." He says, "But they're really poisonous, and I don't want you to touch any of that." Well, a lot of those times they would send me alone because they just simply didn't want me, or didn't want to take the time to walk me over there themselves. But
So eight to
which
ten
that was,
miles and
yeah,
an 8 to 10 mile walk. You were sent alone at
yeah,
age.
at 3 or 4 years old. Yep,
You would walk 8 to 10 miles.
yep, 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 yep. So the whole time from about three or four is when they started sending me out by myself. From then on until mom got back, they were sending me to different places downriver with different people who didn't know the area, but I knew the area because I was always in the woods. I never went to school. So the way it was when I would go to school, my brothers and sisters would get up in the morning and say, okay, let's go to school, Jose. And I get ready. Well, I mean, the best as I could, just get up and go. And we had like a 3 or 4 mile walk to school. And between school and the house, and there was one or two little streams and rivers, and then there was some lakes, and there were some hills and mountains. And so I think I went to school maybe three times. And so every time in the morning when I would be walking with my brothers and sisters, I'd take off up to the hill, or I'd take off to the river. And my sister would always tell me, my sister Rosa would always tell me, she goes, Jose, you're going to get spanked when you get home, and you just need to go to school. And I'd look at her and I said, you know what? I guess when it gets dark, I'll be home. And so I would take off into the woods and just be by myself, talking to who? To the Creator. I mean, I didn't see anything in school that was, a benefit to me during that time. I mean, but I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't want to go to school.
But
I didn't
you
want to
went
go
to
to school.
It seems like you did go to school. It was in nature. It was out. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
yeah, three,
So
4 years of age, you had enough in you to know one, that the so-called education system was not, it was a failure even at that age, but you were learning by
exactly.
connecting yourself with nature at that. And to me, what surprises me is that as that young, that your relatives did not see you, did not realize, or say, well, he's just a child, he's a toddler, something could happen to him walking 8 to 10 miles by himself. Did they recognize your maturity, or did they just not care?
They didn't care. They didn't care. They honestly, that's the number one answer right there, is that they straight up didn't care. Honestly, the way that we were talked to down by our aunts and uncles, it at a very young age. I mean, I finally looked at my aunt one day and I told her, I said, instead of hollering at me about how you hate us, how you hate my brothers and my sisters, and how my mom is just a piece of work, I said, why don't you just go ahead and just start beating me? Get it over. I said, because those words that you're saying actually hurt more than the beatings that you give me. And so when I told her that, she just looked back at me. She was, are you serious? I said, yes, I am. I said, yes, I am. During that time, I had been every bit of maybe 4.5, 5 years old.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, it was a rough life. Life was cheap. Life was definitely cheap down there.
Mm.
And so do we want to go and
I want you to go to what happened on when your uncle told you what not to do,
okay.
but then
Yeah.
you
So
eventually had a trip by yourself, a trek to your grandpa's.
right. So so it came, the time where, like I said, from 3.5 to four, they actually started letting me just walk by myself to grandpa's house, different
8 to 10 miles, y'all.
Yeah, 8 to 10 miles. Yep. And that's not all. That's not all. I mean, I got a book, that I'm working on right now, that I have at least 37 chapters that I haven't been able to finish because there's so much of it. But so when my uncle walked me down there to the place is called Las Pilas. Grandpa's area where he lived at the bottom of the river was called the pools. Las Pilas means the pools.
Mm.
And so I went by there one day, and after my uncle had told me not to, if I was ever hungry out in the woods, not to eat anything off those little cactus berries because they were a little sweet. And so one day I was walking through there by myself, and I seen the cactus. They had some little berries on them, whatever little flowers they were, and I picked them, and I sat down and ate them. But I always liked walking up the hill to the mesa, and I would sit down with my feet dangling off the edge as a little boy. And so I took those little berries, those little buttons, whatever they call them. I don't even know what they are, honestly. And I ate 3 of them. And I went and sat at the edge of the cliff. And I sat there, for a half hour, maybe a couple hours, I don't know, talking to God. And, nothing happened to me. So I guess I was expecting maybe for the little berries to kill me or something. I didn't want nobody to find out that I was dead because I ate the stuff they told me not to eat, And so I was fine. And then a little time went by, about 5 days or so. And then on the way back, I decided, you know what? Nobody's with me and I'm a little hungry. And the plants that day, I mean, they were blooming really good. So there was a lot of those little buttons on there. And I picked anywhere from, I don't know, I'd say 9 to maybe 14, 15, 16 little flowers, little buttons, and I did what I always did. Whenever I walked through that area, I went, sat up on the mesa with my feet dangling off the mesa, and I sat there and I ate those little plants, ate those little flowers, whatever they were, and they were sweet. And that time, it was a different effect because that time I probably spent anywhere from 6 to 8 hours there. And so what happened was this: about, I don't know, I'm going to say 15, 20 minutes, half an hour after I consumed them, I'm sitting there with my feet dangling off the mesa, and I'm talking to God. And I'm like, God, what's going on? I said, why is everything changing? What's going on? He says, well, you're not in your reality anymore. I'm like, what do you mean? He says, what you've consumed, he says, what you've eaten, lo que te comiste, what you've eaten, he says, is opened up your eye. And I was like, really? And so everything, and I mean everything was alive. You name it. So the very wind, the very air that was passing by me, I noticed it. And I was like, what is that? He says, that's the wind. I said, that's the wind? He says, that's the wind. I said, wow. I said, well,
Oops.
I said, what? Why is everything so different? He says, your eyes open. He told me again, your eyes open. And the way I seen everything, I could see the wind. And I looked down towards Grandpa's River, down toward the house at the bottom of the mesa. Like I said, it's probably about 3/4 of a mile.
Do you mean that's the drop?
That's the drop to where the river's at Grandpa's house. And Grandpa's house was on the other side of the river. And so I'm looking down at the river, and the river is alive. You know how you can look at a river if if you ever looked at a river and it looks like when you watch the ripples just run by, it almost looks like you can see diamonds, you can see different pearls, you can see different rocks, and it's just beautiful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it looks great. But when I seen the river, it was like flowing river of diamonds and opals is the best way to describe it. But everything, all the colors in it were alive. And it's like they were right here in front of my face. And I said, I said, what can I do here? He says, anything you want. I said, anything you want? Because I'm looking back, I'm looking back as I'm talking. He says, anything you want. I said, so if I step off here, will I fall? He says, you won't. And I jumped off there. Remember now, my feet are already dangling off that mesa cliff like that, right? And I jump off there. When I jump off there, I land about 3 feet below the mesa, and I'm about 3 feet away from the wall. And I stop and I look around, and I can see all the holes, all the caves on the side of the mesa underneath it. I can see the lizards. The colors on the lizard are practically alive on this lizard. The colors on the lizard are alive. And I'm like, wow. I said, can I go out a little further? He goes, go out as far as you want. And so I walked out probably about 35, 45 paces. And I turn around, mind you now, I'm standing out probably 35 to 40 paces away from this mesa, away from it. And I can see now the face of underneath the mesa really clear, and I can definitely see the caves in there and everything. The plants, the flora, everything is alive and everything is speaking and everything's in harmony. And I'm like, wow. So what I took and did, instead of just standing there, I sat down. I crossed my legs and I sat down. And I can tell you that I do and don't know that I sat there for 6 to 8 hours.
When you say sat there, were you sitting on ground or sitting on air?
I was sitting in the air. So for those 6 to 8 hours, I sat there and talked to who? To the only one person that listened to me after my mom left. And I called that person God. And he talked to me.
And you were how old again? Remind us.
During that time, I was probably about 4.5 to 5 years old. Yeah. So imagine a little kid eating something and not knowing the consequences or the effects. Not that it was bad, but at the same time, could I have eaten something that could have cost me my life? I could have very well. I was constantly eating things. I was eating pine cones. I was eating acorns. I was eating whatever I could put my hands on. I was eating blades of grass. I was eating grubs.
Are those like worms?
Yeah, like wood grubs, the white ones, the white ones. Yeah, yeah. And so, and just to survive. But during that time, I mean, so here I am sitting in, I'm sitting back in the air. I'm sitting back in the air, and every animal that I see, they're not just alive. They're speaking to each other. They're speaking to me. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. And I always ask, questions to God. I said, God, well, how's that even possible? He says, because everything was meant to speak to each other. He says, you realize that everything still speaks now in your reality, but you guys have lost it. And okay, so people ask me, when I've told them this story, I'm telling them about my experience with that. And they're like, wait a second, Blake. So you say you were anywhere from 4 to 5 years old and you're having a conversation with God. How does this kid, this young, have the vocabulary and the capacity to understand what he's talking about? I said, okay. I said, let me take you back to when my mom asked me about, do I remember when she left? I said, and I tell her word for word that I was the last kid that she spoke with. I said, and I tell her exactly what I was going to do. And I remember I told her, I said, Mom, I said, please stay. I said, I will change my ways. I said, I will get a job. I said, I will build you a house. I said, and I will buy you. Why did I tell her this? But I told her I would buy her some shorts, out of all things. I said, and I told you that I would do that for you if you just would please stay and not go.
You were 2.5 then.
And I was 2.5. And so when people tell me, well, how can a 4.5, 5-year-old kid remember his trip on a cloud? I tell them, you got to realize that when I watched my mother, after my dad had been assassinated, walk over that little hill down towards her mom and dad's house, down towards my grandpa's and grandma's house. I said, and knew that I would not see my mom for a very long time. I said, I had to go from being an infant, a small child, an infant, to being an adult mentally. Because if I didn't, I said it would be the difference between my survivability or my dying at a very young age. So I had to learn to read my environment. I had to learn to read people. I had to learn to read everything around me. And so when I tell the people that, they're like, I said, yeah, so I had to go from an infant to an adult. I said, and I remember every bit of it.
So back while you were out there,
what's
you
that?
said about while you were off from the mesa floating, you said about maybe 6 to 8 hours. Then how'd you get back to the solid ground? Or
so
we know you didn't die, but
yeah.
what happened?
So as I'm talking, and here's the other thing that I do remember. I remember a big, beautiful bird with a rainbow colors on his body. And this bird had to have been the length of a man dressed in plumage. And if somebody would ask me what bird that was, I would tell them that it was the dragon Quetzalcoatl, still flying around in the magical, real land, real reality that we as a broken human species cannot see. So how did I get back down? So after a while, after being out there for that long and just speaking, after a while, I started sinking further. Remember, when I jumped off the mesa, I was down below about 3 feet already. So as I was starting to come back to our reality, I started sinking. And when I started sinking, I said, okay, what's going on? He says, you're coming back to your reality. He says, the food that you ate is wearing off. I said, what happens if I stay here longer? He goes, you will fall. I said, really? He goes, yes, you will fall. So I had sunk down probably 6 to 8 more feet. So when I got back to the cliff, the mesa, the cliff, I was below it about 6 to 8 feet, and I actually had to climb my way up and out. So yeah, it was a different experience.
Right. So that drop was about, you said, like 3/4 of a mile down the entire.
Yeah. So,
drop.
And that's at an angle. That's the mileage, from the edge of the cliff, the mesa down to Grandpa's house.
Right. So you walked it many times, but now you were out away from the cliff and just hovering over the area
over everything, over the area where I was usually walking and everything.
Okay.
Yep. Exactly.
I was at someone a couple questions. We'll stop you. or someone asked if I could ask you if you hated being a child, because he said that they said I hated it was because they did.
Well,
And
you
I don't know
know,
whether it means at the time or looking back, you
looking
know,
back,
or
you know, it's kind of like a double-edged sword, because amongst all the hell that was transpiring and everything that was going on, there were times in my childhood when I did enjoy being a childhood. I mean, being a child, and that is when I was speaking to the Creator. So no, I don't despise my childhood. I don't despise being a little boy that went through all that. It makes me who I am. And not only that, it empowers me. It empowers me in such a way that I can see through bull coming a mile away before it even says one word.
right. Wow.
So,
Here's
yeah.
another question for you.
Mhm.
What were the animals saying?
What were the animals saying? During that time, it was so much that they were saying that I didn't quite understand until up into maybe 10 years ago. And now I totally understand them. So I'm sure that whatever they were singing songs of love to each other, songs of love to the Creator. And also, just like the river was speaking, it was singing songs of love.
Wow.
Yep.
Here's another quote because when I said well, you didn't die. Here's one it said he may have died in order to experience the trip and revived upon exiting the trip. Do you think you actually transitioned, or do you?
In order to experience the trip. That's hard to say, because during that time, I mean, like I said, I was eating all kinds of things just to stay alive. I do know this, that it was real in the sense that I was there, I experienced it, and I have the recollection of the things that went on. As far as per se, what were the animals saying? They were just constantly singing praises, singing praises.
Wow. So at so did you eventually you were on your way, or were you to your grandfather's, or were you
I
coming?
was I was on my way back from Grandpa's house. I was on my way back to town.
So 6 to 8 hours of time, missing time, and no one came out and looked for you to say, "Oh, what happened?" And he should have been back by now, or anything like that. Nothing like that.
No, no.
Wow. And how did your grandfather feel about the fact that you were making these treks between his home and your aunt and uncles, and it was 8 to 10 miles, and you were so young? He didn't.
Well, as far as he was concerned, I wasn't part of the flesh. I was illegitimate. But the thing is that you
Was
know,
this your father's father, or
yeah,
was it?
yeah. hmm He
So
only
he
he
was
only
one of the
favored.
ones. Okay. Was he the one that you said, because we were talking about, when you discovered, like you said, I'm a Moor, you're Moor, and
hmm
you were talking about your grandpa, you said, who used to, when weather was threatening the crops and so forth, would go out and do some kind of a dance or do something and change the weather. But you said he was very dark complected and
Yes,
looked like, that's why I
yes,
put the picture of the Olmec head on when I did the promo piece, because you said
right,
my grandpa, you said, was kind of favored, but he
sure.
was the one. Did he treat you, since he thought you were
He actually he was Grandpa Rosas only favored the lighter skinned grandchildren.
but
Okay,
he was dark.
but he was black.
Real,
So
real
Grandpa
black.
Rosas, so I as a kid, I always had different questions. I always had different questions.
Are
And
you, excuse me, before you go further, are you considered um darker skinned than the lighter ones? You have lighter
yes,
complexion?
yes, yes.
Okay.
The only reason why I looked a little bit white is because I got to the light shining directly right here on me. But
But
that's all melanin right there.
but so your darker complected grandpa preferred your lighter complected siblings or whatever his children or grandchildren.
Yes,
Wow.
yes, yes. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's fine, but yeah. And I guess, that's the thing about, coming from down there too, is that, even, you already looked at, you're Mexican and you're coming up to the States where we're going to look down on you because you're a different race. You're not, who we are. Right. So
Mhm.
to tell somebody that you had a black grandpa, oh man, that was even more taboo than saying that you were Mexican. You see what I'm saying? And so therefore, grandpa, I'm sure, learned it from somewhere where he wanted, his grandchildren to be, lighter complected than he was.
Just so that they could have a better way to be okay. And
Exactly.
that's so unfortunate that the system has been such that it has caused us to denounce our own blood, our own seed, just because of the complexion, the color. And then you have some people dying to get brown, trying to stay in this, in this state. And I'm saying literally getting melanomas and all kinds of cancers because they want to
Oh
be
yeah.
brown. So wow. But so when you would spend time with him or at his place, I mean, was there any
Yes.
interaction, or did he treat you? You said his favorites were like, but how did he treat you?
Well, I
How
mean, he treated us fine. We obviously, because I mean, we were able to go there and stay for days at a time, sometimes weeks at a time. So obviously he did care about us somewhat.
Mhm.
I think it's just that maybe he was putting on a machismo thing or egotistical thing where he just I just don't care for them because they're a little bit lighter skinned than the other ones. But I think it was just because my actual dad was a lot darker and than my mom. So my mom kind of looked a little bit more paler.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I think maybe it just made Grandpa jealous, somehow, and then finding out the whole story with the assassination and everything. So
Mhm.
it was tough.
Wow. So now, because you said Blake, at one point you were saying you asked yourself Blake, and if anybody caught that, um, you know, uh, Jose Juan Rosas is your birth name appellation,
Yep.
but your mother, so in the meantime, while all these things are going on and you're getting closer, I would assume, over the time with nature, and you can share that if you want to, but you eventually come up to the, as we say, the states. Although
Right.
now that we know Mexico is the state, is America, and
Hmm.
the U.S. is a corporation sitting on a portion of and controlling all of, or at least trying to. But when you came to the so-called states, your mother was now in or at Florida or
Michigan.
Michigan, then, which
Mhm.
I thought was interesting because you were born at, what's the name of the in Mexico?
Michoacan. Michoacan.
It almost looks like, if you look at it, it looks like Michigan. Michigan. Is it the same? Like, is it like a so-called tribal clan name or what? Because
Yeah,
it seems like
there's
from
some
Michoacan,
relationship there. Yeah,
and what?
there is some relationship there somewhere. I read about it and I've seen a few clips on it, but I need to check up on it. But I'm 100% sure that there is relationship there with the Michoacan and Michoacan, Mexico, and Michigan, the state of Michigan here in Michigan. So
Right.
yeah, there's some relationships there. Hmm.
So you came to Michigan to be with your mother, who was now started a new life,
Hmm.
and you had your name. You and your siblings who came, your names were changed because your mother remarried. and the stepfather explained didn't want you all to have
Spanish name.
Spanish names. So they changed your. Well, you picked your name, or did they change your name?
No, I actually, they actually let me pick my name, and when somebody, let me see, I think they finalized the name change somewhere around 81, maybe 81, 80, 81, maybe, and so they they say that a good name is to be chosen, and I shouldn't have, I don't want to say that, they shouldn't have given me the authority, but really it shouldn't have been given to me. And so I just chose whatever I opened a dictionary or a magazine to, and that's how I chose my name. And
then you find out later on.
And now that I'm learning etymology with you guys and everything, it's like, wait a minute. So Blake actually means bleak. It means pale white, pasty, and I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't ring with me. It doesn't say anything who I am. And then the middle name Zeppelin is like, well, Zeppelin is a
like
blimp.
Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, like the Led Zeppelin. Yeah, and
blimp.
Do what?
Is that like a blimp, a plane?
Yes, the Zeppelin that the Germans were using, that's what it was, and so I took that up too, and then finally learning what my last name means in my adopted last name. The last name is of the silly, and actually the real meaning is of the stupid silly. And so, I'm looking, and I talked to my wife about it. I said, wait a minute. I said, Tamara, I said, you understand that the name that I chose, not only it does not have any life, but it's also derogatory. I said, and the last name especially.
But you didn't choose that, but it almost like speaks to the other two parts of your name that you just did choose, of the stupid silly.
Right. Exactly. So I was like, wait a minute. So then, I started reading on, my original name and what they entailed and what they meant. And my original name means blessings. It means, God's blessings, God's grace.
We'll call it favor, because we know we've come to learn that bless is when
favor. Yeah, favor.
Because the bless is to bleed, and so we don't.
Right.
Yeah, but the favor.
Be blessed. Yeah, be blessed.
But the favor.
I get it now. I get it. So and so I really, I think it's coming a time in my life where maybe I do want to go ahead and take up my original name. And
so that's what we put here on the for the program. We're calling you by your original birth name, which
correct.
is José Juan Rosas.
Yep.
And and now I know you're also looking at your nationality and your birthright as far as being a Bay or an L.
Exactly.
So it's a good time to create or to select that which you can be proud of and so forth. But it's interesting. You told your mother at 2.5 years of age, if she stayed, you were going to buy her some shorts, but you're also going to build her a house. You became a stonemason.
Right.
Did you go to school for that, or is that that skill that developed on your own?
No, that was a skill that I developed on my own, working through different contractors, and that's just something that I took upon myself, because I mean, really, in high school, I mean, in junior high, I mean, what do they really teach you in school? I mean, if they taught etymology right off the bat, starting from first grade up to the 12th grade, the kids wouldn't need to go to college. They really wouldn't. So yeah, no, that's just a whole different ball game right there. It really is.
but you've had some others, and we don't want to leave it there with what it didn't stop with the experience on the off of the Mesa when you were 4.5, 5 years old. As you have grown up through life, you've
Yes.
had experiences, and some very interesting ones that you've shared that
Okay.
you've shared with me. So let's go forward.
Okay. So, I've always been a heavy dreamer. And what I mean by that, I'm not, thinking about becoming a millionaire or becoming a rock star or nothing like that. What I mean by that is my dreams have always been repetitive dreams and in color. And so when back in, I'd say, let me see, 2008, 9, right around that time, I started doing missionary work. And I was really into the church, and I was really looking for this God, for God. And so it got to the point where, I'd go to church and I I just it was like I was just there. But during that time I started having heavy dreams, repetitive dreams. And what I mean by repetitive is that after the third or fourth time, I just quit counting. And so I'm going to say repetitive 3 to 5, possibly more times. And so I'm going to take you to a little dream where everything is going to blow up. So in my dream, I awoke in my dream and I was on top of this mountain. And this mountain, it was flat. I could look up to it and it was flat. We were working just below it. Me, a white gentleman, and um, a black Moor, a young Moor. And as we're working on this house, we're framing it up, and we see the usual airplane, the usual helicopter there in the area. And out of nowhere, I start seeing soldiers pouring out into the streets. And one of the guys is like, "Hey, look at all the soldiers." I said, "Yeah, what's going on?" And the white guy is like, "Oh, they're probably just doing their usual practice." And I said, "Okay." And next thing you know, I see some military helicopters, and they're American, and I see some Russian helicopters, and I'm like, "Wait a minute." So then we start seeing explosions in the air. What looks to be like Russia and the US is at war, and we're watching it unfold right before our eyes. And we're on top of this mountain, and we can see the airplanes and the helicopters destroying different airplanes and different helicopters. But then we notice that they're destroying trucks, they're destroying cars of people that look like are trying to flee. And I'm like, wait a minute. And the white gentleman goes, he was, we're at war against Russia. And I said, no, 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 no. Look closer. I said, the world superpowers are at war against us. And I paid closer attention, and now there's military personnel, military soldiers coming out of these military bases and pouring out into the streets. And there's tanks and there's hardware. And now there are houses being blown up. There's military men on horns telling people to come out of their houses to wait for the van to pick them up. And there's people being shot in the streets. And there's Russian helicopters, there's Iranian helicopters, there's Iranian tanks, there's Chinese tanks, there's American tanks. And all these have their troops out, dumping out into the city. And as all this is happening, everyone who's trying to flee, who owns an airplane or a helicopter, and they're seeing taken off, either Russian or American jet or helicopter sends a missile and knocks them right out of the sky. If somebody's trying to flee in a car or in a truck, they're being blown up in the highways right there. And so people are being dragged out of their houses. And I'm watching this from the top of this mountain. It's called Flat Top. And in reality, this mountain really exists. And this mountain is in Anchorage, Alaska.
Mhm.
And so I started doing missions work. Now I started doing missions work up there in Alaska. So when I landed in Alaska for the first time in 2009, I knew I had been to that specific city because I looked up and Flat Top Mountain was looking down at me. So back to the dream. So after watching a bunch of people get blown up, destroyed, dragged out of houses, shot in the streets, I decided that I'm going to start running to get to my wife and my girls. And as I start running, the white gentleman that was working with us, he goes, "Hey, why don't you just take the truck?" I said, "Man," I said, "aren't you paying attention?" I said, "Everybody that gets in a vehicle to try to run anywhere gets blown up." I said, "Look at the helicopters and the airplanes that are getting blown up." And he says, okay. So he stayed there. And the young Moor, the young man, asked me if he could come with me. I said, "Yeah, come on." And so we both started running down the mountain. And in order to avoid the military that was dumping out into the streets, we were having to dodge off the streets, off the mountains, off into the ravines, off into the rivers and creeks to avoid the military. And every now and then we would come out on the street and there would either be military soldiers or people trying to run. And so we were running and we came up on this lady, on this white woman, and she had 3 kids in tow with her, anywhere from the ages of about 6 to probably about maybe 10 years old, 3 kids. And so she stops us and she goes, Mister, please stop. And I stopped. I said, "Make it fast, lady." I said, "What's going on?" She goes, "I don't know what to do." She goes, "But can we please just follow you?" I said, "You know what, lady, you can." I said, "You're more than welcome to follow me." I said, "But we're running and we're scurrying and we're dodging." I said, "People are shooting at us." I said, "But you're more than welcome to follow us." So she started running with us, scurrying through the streets, scurrying through the woods. And I came up on this road that came into a cul-de-sac dead end. And it was all treed all the way around. And there was this concrete building of about 10 feet wide by 10 feet wide, probably 10 feet tall, made out of block. And there was a door. So we caught the attention of a Russian helicopter. And I ran to the door and I pulled on a handle and it opened up. And we all poured into it. We all poured into the building, into this building. And there was another door with a concrete, like built into the concrete shell. And I started pounding on that door. And finally, a few soldiers opened up the door and they said, "Look, you can't be in here. You need to leave right now." I said, "Hey, mister, please." I said, "Let us in." I said, "There's a helicopter, a Russian helicopter, that's getting ready to destroy us." I said, "They kill us." I said, "Please let us in." He goes, "No, you're not supposed to be in here. Leave now." And after pleading with him 2 or 3 times and him saying no, I finally turned around and I started walking off out the door. And when I did that, the lady that was in tow with us, with the 3 children, recognized the soldiers. One of the soldiers was married to that woman, and that he was dad to the kids. And right away, the lady started asking him to let him in. She says, "Honey, please let us in. Please let us in." And he says, "No, I can't do that." And then his kids asked him. And by now, I'm stepping out, and he was denying his kids also. So the Moor gentleman and I started running, and just as we got probably, I don't know, maybe 2 blocks, maybe a block away from it, that Russian helicopter came and shot a missile right at that shelter and blew it up with that lady in it. So you got to realize that when I talk about this, these repetitive dreams, I start shaking. And when I would have these repetitive dreams, I would wake up in sweats, and my wife and my kids would be like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And I'm like, "I'm just having some nightmares." And so back to the dream, we're running and we're scurrying still, and we come up in this in this area that has a football field on it. But all the way around the outside of the football field is filled up with soldiers and tanks and military hardware and just people being processed. And so our only solution is that we have to go through that football field, and there's no way around it. But there's like 300 soldiers on that field. And the Moor gentleman had like this duffel bag. He had this duffel bag. I don't know, you guys been to gym and you remember your gym socks and your gym shorts and tennis shoes would cause your duffel bag to get all kind of weird shape. Well, that's the way his bag looked. It looked all kinds of weird shape. He goes, "I'm going to clear that field of those soldiers." He goes, "But you can't look at what happens right here." He goes, "If you look at it, it can kill you also." I said, "Okay." He goes, "It's not going to destroy any dirt. It's not going to destroy grass or any trees or anything." He goes, "It's just going to destroy the soldiers." I said, "Okay." He reached in his duffel bag and he pulls out what resembles I don't know, can y'all see them?
Mm-hmm.
Little crystals, different colors. And there were rocks. And he's got this whole bag full of them. And he takes like 3 of them. And this is where this young Moor taught me how to power those crystals up. And when he threw them, he told me, "Don't look at it." But you got to realize that I was in my dream state, so I could look at it. He threw those 3 crystals after he powered them up with his chakras. He threw them into that field of 300 soldiers, and we both turned away. And I just heard thud, thud, thud. And it's just like a weird feathering sound. And we both turned around. When we turned around, the field that contained those 300 soldiers had 300 dead soldiers laying in the field. They did not have any entry wounds, and they didn't have any exit wounds. There was no blood, but they were all dead. Now, who do I think I've been looking for since I've been having these dreams? I've been looking for a young
More.
Moor. that has these capabilities. And maybe he doesn't know he has the capabilities, but he's got capabilities like water bending, air bending right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be some of them who are going to teach us how to do these things.
So this warfare, like they say, the weapons of our warfare are not carnal.
Mhm.
So and but mighty, they say through God to the pulling down of strongholds. So the spiritual warfare, this warfare is not going to be fought,
Mhm.
with when you say just throwing down some crystals is not the
Mhm.
same as shooting
Mhm.
someone with a gun or an
Okay,
arrow.
but see, here's why I wanted to see right there. You say that, but these crystals are alive.
Oh,
That's a proven fact. These crystals are alive.
oh, I
They're in your
believe it.
computers, they're in your phones, they're in your x ray machines when you go get x rays, they're in everything.
I keep one on my desk.
How much more spiritual can that be?
That's right.
The crystal is spiritual. And here's the thing, these young Moors that I'm seeing already do some pretty extraordinary things,
Mhm.
like shoving wind around, shoving water around with their chakras. They will understand how to charge these, how to use them. Let's go to the Bible a little bit. You used to be an ex-pastor, or you used to be a pastor,
Yeah,
right?
that's true. That's true.
Okay. When, if you go to the Old Testament, um, Aaron, whenever Aaron and who was the other one, Moses, had to go into the holiest of holies, and say maybe Friday they partied too much, maybe they hung out, watched too many Netflix, maybe they drink too many cold beers. The only way that their God would let him come in was if he had what? The
Um,
ephod on his chest.
with the 12 crystals.
Okay, he had the 12 stones, right? 12
Mhm.
crystals. That meant that if Aaron and Moses had too many cold beers the night before and they were hungover and their frequency wasn't just right to be in front of their creator and maker, then that's why they tied that rope around their ankle. So if they did come in a little hungover and they got zapped out, they dragged their butts out of there before he finished killing them.
Mhm.
So that means those stones, the spiritual in them, would bring Aaron and his brother into frequency where they were spiritual enough to walk in front of God and not be killed. Let me give you another example. Next example, in Revelation, they describe the kingdom of heaven. Whoa. The kingdom of heaven is supposed to be, the actual kingdom of heaven is supposed to be a see-through floor that's made out of what? Solid gold. Okay. Okay. Not only that, but the foundation, the very foundation that the kingdom of heaven sits on and is held up by, is built by with what? Different types of crystals and gems and stones. Why? Because combination with a gold and the different frequencies that those crystals carry, the spiritual crystals, give that kingdom the levitation and the frequency to lift up and to be wherever it wishes to be.
Would that also be, when Yeshua said that the kingdom of heaven is within you? So the elements of the crystals and the gold and the silver actually is within our physical bodies, and so
Exactly.
we are made of those elements and so forth, but we are suppressed in our
Exactly.
in like I said, in one of our knowledge and the ability to execute with that knowledge, and that's why so many things have been fed, I believe, to us from a standpoint of indoctrination to dumb us down, to dim the light, to reduce the power, if you will. But like you said, there's coming now young people, and you're saying young Moors, but young people who have an innateness that is not, they seem to be immune to a lot of the, the infiltration of the mind. And they come on a mission, to bring us back into harmony, bring us back into balance, like you said, with nature. Nature. When I stopped pastoring, one of the first things I started doing was something called Nature Church. I have about 500 pictures on my phone because some folks used to follow me on Facebook. I would literally on Sundays, I would get out and walk. We have a beautiful park in within walking distance of my home, and I would actually walk through the woods. I mean, through the park, and I would get to the edge of the river, the Brandywine River, and a whole gaggle of geese or ducks would come to the edge of the river, and I would go, "The choir's here, y'all," and the ducks would be the ducks, and they quack a little bit, and then they would go off, and I said, "Okay, now we're going to start our walk." And so I would take pictures of, and I have like on my phone of the things, of nature, and I mean, I saw things. I mean, I'd never seen a chipmunk besides Alvin and the Chipmunks. I saw a real chipmunk. I put it in my nature walks. I saw things. I saw trees that looked like humans had been turned from a human and pterodactyl into a tree. I got pictures like this. So I saw so many things, and I never felt more spiritual, more connected. None of my being in the pulpit preaching here, there, none of that felt the way it felt just being out in nature, which pains me right now because I'm having problems with my ankle and my hip.
Still.
That I can't walk out there, in nature, because there's such a healing that comes about. Not only that, a knowing, like you said, there's a knowing when you allow yourself to be grounded in nature. So I feel what you're saying. So if this Moore is listening or listens to this this particular presentation, we definitely hope that they, he, she, them will reach out and connect with you. Someone asked in the comments, and I don't know whether I started. They wanted to know, because my decision. Okay, here we are. How did you get your initiation to become a shaman? And so,
maybe you can tell them that one, huh?
Yeah, y'all, I made him a shaman. No, I didn't make him a shaman. I acknowledged that he's like an incidental shaman. He doesn't call himself a shaman. I called him that, and I'm looking up what I looked. I want to share this. How are shamans chosen? He does not become, and he or she, because they're female shamans. They have a shaman, and then whatever. Females can be shamans. He does not become a shaman simply by willing it, for it is not the shaman who summons up the spirits, but they, the supernatural beings, who choose him. Adolescence typically marks the point when the spirits begin to take an over role in the shaman's life, right? And we know for let's see, like, although variations in the age of onset do occur, the spirits may cause the chosen one to, it says, fall into hysterics, to faint repeatedly, to have visions, or to have similar symptoms, with these events sometimes persisting for weeks. You've been 2.5 years of age, you were, my gift says that you were chosen at that. So I called you the incidental shaman. You're not calling yourself doing, you have the work, you have the miracles. Tell us the story. Share, if you don't mind, the story of when you and your friend were on the bikes in Alaska. I think you were on ATVs or something, going to his uncle's house or something.
Oh, yeah. So, I started doing missions work up there in Alaska in 2009. And so in 2010, I took the whole family, and we were out in a village, and one of the natives, he says, "Hey, I want you to meet my uncle. He lives, about 15 miles outside of the village. I said, okay. So we both jumped on some four-wheelers and we started driving down the coastline. And of course, being my second time in Alaska, during that time, I was still in awe with the beauty of everything. And so I was constantly lagging behind. And we finally made it to where his uncle was supposed to be at. And we had to leave our four-wheelers, our ATVs, at the bottom of the hill next to the ocean, and then walk up a hill, good-sized hill, and then walk a little further, and his uncle's house was there. Well, I'm walking, and the native, he's up ahead of me. He's like, come on, there's a lot of wolves out here. And I said, okay. And of course, I'm still in awe about Alaska the whole time, that I see berries and I'm picking berries as I'm walking up the hill, and he's like, come on, I'm serious. There's wolves up here. And I said, okay. And so now I'm probably lagging back there, maybe a good, 80 feet, 100 feet now, from him. And so now we're getting close to the house, and I can see him. He's almost to the house. And out of nowhere, this gray wolf comes out of the woods. And they both threw their arms up like this. They're like, they said, whatever you do, just keep walking. I said, okay. So I started walking, kept walking towards them. And the wolf came and got right in front of me. And
was it big?
It was big. It was so big that its snout would go to my diaphragm. So I'm 5'9", 5'10". His snout was hitting me in my diaphragm. And so I was like, woo. They kept telling me, they're shouting things to me to not to do and to do. They're like, do not look into the wolf's eyes and try to step away to the side. But whatever you do, do not look into the wolf's eyes, because if you do, he's going to attack you, and we're going to have to life flight you if you're even alive after he attacks you. And I was like, oh boy. I said, okay. And I'm trying to scoot to the left, I'm trying to scoot to the right, and the wolf does the same thing. And finally, something inside of me is like, just talk to the animal, man. What is wrong with you? And I was like, okay. So I finally looked at the wolf, and I said, what do you want, boy? And he bumps me in the chest. I said, you want me to pet you? And he bumps me again. And I was like, you do want me to pet you? So I started petting him. I started caressing him on top of the head. And I stopped. I said, are you good? And he bumped me again. And he stepped out of my way. And I walked the rest of the way to the native's house. And so when I walked in the house, they're like, we can't believe that just happened. They're like, are you Indian? Or I said, yeah, from South America, probably, yeah. I said, yes, for sure. And they're like, well, if that would have been anybody else, they would have gotten torn apart, and they would have either been dead or life flighted out of here. I said, well, I guess that wasn't anybody else, was it? But, there's been instances in my life where, nature itself, just comes to me. I can go in the backyard and start doing my little whistle calls for birds. And next thing you know, I got 10, 15, 20, 30 birds joining in with the conversations. And so that's where we have to realize that we've gotten so far away from nature, is that we've lost touch not only with nature, but in all actuality, we've lost touch with ourselves.
So how do we get back? How do we get back there?
How do we get back? We get back into nature. We get back into talking to nature, just like you're talking to one of your loved ones, to your mom, to your dad, to your friend, and you talk to them and you acknowledge that they exist, because they just want to be acknowledged. They want to know that you know that they are there and they have a purpose in life, not only for themselves, but for you as a whole. And so that's where we have to get back into reality and speak to reality, speak to nature, just like you're speaking to, your favorite pet. your pet understands you, you know. And so, yeah, why wouldn't, the trees and the birds and the bees and the deer and the bear want to have a conversation with you? They just want to be acknowledged. I'm not saying go out and go pet a alligator, go pet a puma, or yeah, there are people that can do that. You know, I've been in the ocean. I've surfed in the ocean with sharks and different types of bottlenose dolphins, and had a great time. Nobody attacked anybody, and so we just have to get back to speaking to nature and loving nature, just like God intended it for it to be done. In Genesis, he said, "Here, I put these in your care." He says, "I give you the plants, for you to eat. I give you the herbs for your healing." He says, he didn't say, I give you the beef, I give you the the chicken, and I give you the Big Mac, and that to eat. He said, no. He says, take care of the animals. He told us what to eat. People just don't eat it. And we're actually supposed to be eating the Cain diet. And the Cain diet, what happened to Cain? His offer got rejected. His offer got rejected because he didn't have a blood offering of a sacrifice. He came in there and he offered vegetables and fruits. But guess what?
But
Really, that's
when
what we're
you
supposed to
say
eat.
that, though, and we're not going to say that was bad, because we know now when we look at the Bible, when I look at the Bible from a different perspective and see it like more of a sort of a twisted historical record of actual events with what we would call extraterrestrial, perhaps, beings, that these beings, these Anunnaki or these other beings, are those that require blood sacrifice.
Exactly.
So we thought that was a bad thing, but the problem was that these bloodthirsty beings who have held humanity in their powers for so long have always had it so that blood is being shed. They had the children that were being sacrificed to Moloch. Now they don't say Moloch, but we got stuff happening where children have been and are being sacrificed. So these are ancient practices that to this day still continue. But it was still a good thing that Abel, did what Abel did. Abel had what Abel knew what to eat, and because of it, his brother got upset and killed him.
Yeah.
And so it's still happening today in a different way.
Yeah.
In a
Yeah.
different way. So we start, I look, because you were asking me about my time as a pastor, and do I still? No, I don't still get up in I don't preach anymore. I try to share and teach, the knowledge I have. I try not to have so-called religious um debates or conversations, because it's very
Sure.
sensitive. Religion and politics are, to me, very sensitive areas. I have what I feel and people have what they feel and believe. But from a standpoint of the way I see that book now, and the other books, the other texts, and the continuity between other texts that we were told, don't read that stuff. Just read the King James Version. And I was thinking, just in that all by itself, the fact that something is a version means that it's a version of what? Then let me get what it's a version of. Let me get the truth. I want the truth. And so if you seek it, if you seek truth, truth will come to you. Truth will find you. Seeking you shall find, knocking the door shall be open to you. So if you want to know what really is going on, you can't sit on your rusty dusty and just think it's going to come to you. Pursue it. Pursue your spiritual life. Pursue the energetic forces that are within you. Like you said, the air, the water, the earth, the fire, they all a part of who we are. And if you start to see yourself in the wholeness, and I love what Billy Carson talks about with fractals, because what it is that we are all a part of the whole. You just, if you take a drop of water out the ocean, guess what? The whole ocean's in the drop. And that's how it is with us, as who we are. But we've just been we've been, I don't want to call it dumbed down, but it's almost like we've been like they turned off something. Something's been
No,
switched
you
off.
use the right terminology. You use the
Yeah.
right terminology. Yep,
So
dumb
you're
down.
saying getting out there, for you, of course, like I said, I can see that from a very early age, even the trials of losing, the trauma of losing your parents at your father at 2, and so, and then your mother having to leave, seems to me part of your initiation process. And then the fact that you were able to navigate, through woods and mesas and deserts, and whatever that was, maybe it was peyote or something, whatever it was you ate, that put you in a place where you were able to see everything open up. The universe opened up to you and showed you the vastness or the greatness of who you really are.
Hmm.
And most of us don't get that experience. I mean, some people, will take a trip, and
Yeah,
temporary trip, but it seems like your lifetime has proven, the power that works within you, just with
sure.
and nature. Your relationship with nature is a prime example of that, in my in my opinion. So when we talked that day, which started out about nationality,
Hmm.
I was led to, just listen and respond where I could, because
Right.
I hear, I don't know everything, but I know I have a knower that does. And so when you let the knower speak, or when you let the knower perceive, then you can come out with the right conclusions. And I was like, well, people need to hear about your
Hmm. Hmm.
experiences and
Sure.
what it is. And you need to, do more as far as getting yourself out there. I'm happy that this platform, is able to present you
Hmm.
to a larger audience. I mean, it's more people will see it, after the fact, but they need to know, that it's possible for them, especially if they have gifts that they're suppressing, you know, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So,
So
so could I speak a little bit about the after effects of that trip?
sure, yes.
Okay, so later on in life, like I said, I came up to here to Michigan. Um, I the I had picked up gifts down there from whatever I ate. So one of those gifts was that I can see a tiny little, like I explained it to a lot of people. Like, for example, take all the pins and needles of the whole world, and bring them all together and split them 1,000 times in a head, and then combine them all and put them in a small room, and there still wouldn't be enough pins and needles split in half so many times to fill the room with the energy that I see permeating and everything. And so, as a kid, when I came up here, I didn't want to share any of that information with my siblings. I didn't want to share it with my mom and dad. And I definitely didn't want to share it with my little friends whom I made here, because if I started talking that, you know what happens? That's the time when they started medicating the kids.
Yes, that's right.
In the early 80s is when they started medicating them. Oh, you got a headache. You're seeing this. Oh, you're hearing this. Well, here, take a pill.
Yep.
And so I didn't want to be medicated. Something inside me told me that no, I was not crazy for the things that I had picked up, the gifts that I was given during that experience. And one of those gifts was that I can see the energy source that is in everything. And what I mean everything. And I was sitting up there talking to the creator one time up there in Alaska, and I said, you know what? I said, I never really asked you what it was that I see now in everything. He says, what you see, he says, that is what I hold creation in place with. And if you study a little bit in theology and everything, you'll find out that that thing that holds everything in place has a name, and it's called a Sophia. So the Sophia is a female energy that I see in everything. And so that's not the only thing that I can do. Is the other thing I can do is I can lay down, close my eyes, whether it be in a dark room or a lighted room or anything, close my eyes. And if somebody slams the door, the energy signature that it took to slam that door, the slamming of that door, the energy signature comes to my mind's eye. And in turn, I pick up the colors, the energy of the color of the energy. And but not only that, but I can draw it. And so that's one other gift that I received there. The other gift was to be able to listen to the animals, to speak to them, and to really comprehend in a sense that hey, if the dog is hurting or something, if something's going on with the dog will let me know and I can help it. If a perfect example is, I asked my husky dog, I asked her, I said, Misha, I said, so are you my loba reincarnated from Mexico? And she goes, yes, I am. I said, Misha, are you kidding me? I said, are you really my dog from Mexico reincarnated to see me again? She goes, yes, I am. And I said, no way. I said, Misha, I'm going to ask you a third time, just like they do in the Bible. I said, Misha, are you my loba reincarnated here again? And she says, you asked me a third time. She goes, yes, I am. So that energy signature that you have in your hand, of the one with Misha in it, is my dog's energy signature. So if my dog was to pass away, that is what she would look like. That her snout right there, all that energy is what her snout came to me as. And when she did this, she snorted over the top of me and I had my eyes closed. So this is her nose and all her little creases and little bumps and everything. And that's what I picked up in my mind's eye, the energy signature that came off of her nose. Now you stop and think about that. When the old hunters, from back then, the Indians, they would go hunt the buffalo or the bear or the moose, whatever. Just as they shot that animal with that arrow, or they finished killing it, just as it was dying, they would run up to that animal and they would inhale the essence that's coming out of that animal last breath. And so this picture of my dog's snout makes total 100% sense as to why those hunters would go over there and inhale that last breath of the animal, because they were inhaling that energy signature, that essence of the animal.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So we have some more pictures here. We have, let me see. Let me make sure I can get back to, does it matter which one I pull up?
No, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Okay, maybe on this one, maybe you should go to the first one on this one.
Okay. All right. Let me go back. This one?
No. Oh, no, yeah. Either, okay. Yeah, I'll just talk through it. Yeah, I'll just talk through it. Okay, so that one right there, that one, I was in my bedroom falling asleep, and it was a pop in my wood-burning stove. So that was an amber popping in a wood-burning stove, and you can see where it starts right there, the initial spark, it pops, and then as that amber is flying, it's losing its energy. So what you see at the top, what looks like a little spider, is not a spider. That's the amber after it extinguished out. And what you see.
Oh, okay. It says amber, but what it really was an ember, like a spark of fire. Ember.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. And so that's what it was. That's what that one is. And so I can pick up the energy signature in just about everything like that makes a pop or a sound. And it's I'm starting to pick up. It seems like I'm picking more and more up as these weeks have been going by. I don't know for what reason, but there's got to
What
be
about
some reason.
people? What about the energy signatures of people?
Of people, um, yeah, I can pick them up. I can pick them up.
So like the
And
aura. Can you read the auras? Are you
yeah,
able?
I can definitely see the aura, and that's pretty simple. That's that for me is pretty simple to read right away.
Mhm.
That for me, I mean, just looking at the person, I can see it. That's right away.
Mhm.
That's for sure. And as far as people speaking, and they'd have to be, almost right next to my head, or maybe, you know, uh, maybe yelling something or something, or sneezing. Like there's one in there that's a sneeze. That was my nephew was sneezing. And again, I picked it up, and it to me it looked like a sparkler going off. But imagine a sparkler. Imagine you lighting a sparkler, and it fires off in under a split second all at once. And that's what that sneeze. I think it shows a Matthew sneeze. Matthew sneeze.
Yes, I'm trying to show it. All right, here we go.
So that right there is my nephew. Again, I was in a bedroom. He came over early one morning, and he was speaking, but then he sneezed. And when he sneezed, that's what I call in my mind's eye. The energy signature was black and white, and it was just like a sparkler. Like I said, imagine taking a sparkler. Everybody's played with a sparkler when they were kids, and it would take quite a while to burn that sparkler down to where it was a little nub and it was done, right?
Right.
Well, imagine this sneeze being a sparkler, but it firing off that sparkler in under a split second. Boom. And that's what I seen, a sparkler just firing off all at once. And that's what the sneeze was.
Hmm.
Um, what's the other one do you have?
Let me see. Okay.
Oh man, that's that's getting scary now. So this is my latest one, and I mean, my wife says, "Well, why don't you draw everything that you see?" And I told her, I said, "Pam, I said, Tamara, I said I wouldn't have time to do anything else. This is all I would be doing." So this is a text alert with a bank statement to my wife's phone at 1:30 in the morning. So each one of those little boxes is an account, is different accounts, and there are different accounts in each one of those little boxes. And if I wanted to, I could sit there and concentrate and keep concentrating, and I could pull up different people's informations out of those boxes. Do I want to do that? No. I don't want to do that. So but that's
So you got your wife received a text from the bank, but in it you saw other people's accounts, not hers also, I'd assume. So each
yes.
one of these
So
boxes.
yeah. So if I wanted to, I could actually concentrate and probably start going through different accounts. Yeah, the way they're coming in like that. Yeah. Yep. So right now, the way you're seeing them, they're just encoded. They're just encoded, and that's what I picked up. Hmm.
Wow.
Hmm.
Someone said, when will your book, here we go, when will your book be finished, and are the drawings in the book, or will they be in the book?
That's still kind of up in the air. I would love to finish the book first of all, and then maybe start putting some art out, or maybe even start drawing what I seen back then as a kid. Because what I experienced on top of that mesa, on top of the air, was just a whole different world and a whole different film that I could come up with that on that because, like I said, everything was alive. Everything was alive. You name it, it was alive.
I could see a movie. I could see a movie being, produced. You had we talked about airbenders, Last Airbender and but I could see a movie, with your life, as a young boy who's got, having these experiences as a child. Because we look as when I was a child, I thought as a child, I spoke as a child, understood as a child. But you
Mm-hmm.
you had a higher, level of knowledge and intuition. It would be interesting to discover who you were before.
Exactly. And
Because
that's you're making a point right there that you know I have this thing where I can walk into a room and I mean nobody has to say a word to me, but if I walk into a room, I can walk into a room and know that I recognize people from a different time. And a perfect example was just when I went to court, and I'm not going to run the whole scenario of that, but just when I went to court the other day, I had not met my lawyer face to face, and I had not met the judge or seen pictures of him. I had not met the investigating officer or the prosecuting attorney. And guess what? When I walked into that room, I knew who they were, and I named them out to my wife. And I said, "Oops." I said the last two people I got their names backwards. I said the names are the other way around. And so that in itself and other things that I've experienced lead me to believe that you know what I've been here more than just one time,
oh, of course, of course.
and I'm here now to bring some insight to somebody, or maybe they're supposed to bring me some insight or something.
Or to see something through, to complete a task, to have some unfinished part maybe of your experience, your third density experience completed. I had a
Mhm.
reading done several years ago, an Akashic reading, and I just found it recently. And the sister that did the reading said to me that I was a um what did she call me? I always knew what she said, basically that I was here, um that I was one of something originator, blueprint originator.
Oh,
And
you
she
were a scientist, were you?
no, well, she just said that. She said that the reading said that I was a blueprint originator, and that I was back to see
Yep.
it, how the plan was coming.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, well, okay, if that's,
I know
and
what
I
that
don't
is.
know.
I know what that is.
Oh, okay,
They
okay.
don't even have to tell me, but I know what that is. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
Yes.
a lot of this information, and I haven't read books in quite some time, but recently I've started reading it. It's not to actually per se gain the knowledge that I'm learning from the books, but I think it's more to reiterate what I'm picking up from in here, from within, and from
Mhm.
out here, what's coming from the sun.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of the sun, I wish I could have brought it up, but I it was a moon actually that I took a picture of the moon. I don't know what the moon looked like where you were yesterday, but it was a great big orange slice. It looked
Oh
like a
wow.
slice. It looked like a slice of orange, and I took a picture of it and I posted it on my Facebook page, and I said it's not an orange slice. It's actually, and I doubt that it'll even come up, but you
Oh
can't
yeah.
see it. You can't see. Oh, there it is.
Oh, I
Can you
see it.
see?
There it is.
It looks like an orange. It looks like a slice of an orange. That was a moon in my area. I mean, it was so striking that I got out of my car and to take the picture, and then a stray cat, tried to get in my car while I was taking the picture of the moon. I was like,
Hey,
no, no, no.
cats can read your aura. You know that, right?
Well, I was surprised because
A
they were
dog
getting
a
ready to get in
dog
my
can
car.
sense, and a cat can read your aura.
I have a cat, and he's just a yeah.
Okay.
I have a cat named Cat, and he's a character.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what I was saying is with the sun. You mentioned
Mhm.
the sun. Do you think that the sun that we see now is the sun that we had been used to, because there's a lot of talk about more than one sun, the sun being white where it used to be yellow and whatever. um was it somebody who said that? Somebody showed me a picture.
Well, I got the pictures right there in the drawings.
Well, there was a picture of a sun. Oh,
Uh-huh.
no. I remember now. Somebody visited me and it was about the moon. They actually took pictures of the moon, but they had some pictures of the moon looking like they could see that there was like a hollow part of it. I don't know whether you're talking about, let me see, this
Mm-hmm.
one. No, stop that. Is it this, the flower of life? Okay, yeah. Here we go. Can you see that? All right. How do I share this? Okay.
Okay. So what I witnessed here last Tuesday or Wednesday, I do sun gazing, and let me give you a little rundown as to, how why I do it. I do it because I've always done it as a kid, first of all. But I used to work with a gentleman, a Moor, whose name was Fred Sparrow in Florida. And Mr. Fred Sparrow was probably about 7 foot tall. And I got big hands, but his hands were like two of my hands put together, right? And he would always have in-depth conversations with me. And one time he goes, Mr. Blake, he goes, you see that sun? He pointed his finger at it. He goes, can you do that? Can you do that? I said, what do you mean? He goes, can you sit there and stare at it without burning your eyes? And I said, you know what, Mr. Fred? I always thought everybody could do it. He goes, oh, no, 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 mister. He goes, no. He goes, the only few people that can do it, he goes, is a Moor and a brown man. He goes, I don't know if you can do it, mister. He goes, but I know I can do it. He goes, look up there at that sun. I said, like I said, Mr. Fred, I thought everybody could do it. I said, I always could. And so I do sun gazing. And what I picked up here recently was the flower of life coming off of the sun.
Hmm.
And so each one of those ripples that you see there, the sun is the orange.
Mm-hmm.
Each one of those ripples represents a petal. But in each one of those ripples is what? Is smaller flowers of life. And so the way they come out of the sun, they come out as a big circle, and they just start emitting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and they permeate everything. And so that's what I was able to pick up the other day off of the sun.
So you see the sun again, as I said earlier, as a fractal, because
Mhm,
here, there's coming, yeah.
exactly.
But do you think that the sun that we see now, though, even though you saw that, is the same sun? Is it something that's maybe being placed out there, by
I,
someone other than us, and not what it used to be?
well, the sun that I remember was like the one I got colored right here. The one I got colored. It used to be orange and some, white in there. Now it's mostly white.
Right,
And the reason why I didn't stick to white on this picture that I drew was because you wouldn't be able to tell that it was the sun, but it was all white.
right.
And so do I feel that we're looking at the same sun? It, I don't think so. I don't believe so. And here's why. Just simply the color that it emits now is different than what it was emitting when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And that being said, I mean, if you go on the NASA websites, they're supposed to have a sun simulator that hooks up to the real sun.
Oh, really? Mhm.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, they're hiding the truth. They're hiding, they're hiding the creator. They're hiding everything. And one of those ways to do it is to mess with the sun and the way we're supposed to receive the information off it for nourishment, not only nourishment, but also information, say downloads, of being able to speak with the animals, of being able to read the moon and the sun, different things like that. So it's that's a subject that could be explored in depth for sure.
Wow, that's interesting. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I am. I'm making sure if anybody wants to email you. Did I put that right? I hope I put that right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
Right.
correct.
If you would like to reach out to Brother Jose, his email, please take this down. um, I also let me see. Yeah, you'll see it there. And if you would like to say thank you, I've put up the cash up. You didn't ask me for anything, but I believe that we should show our appreciation to folks who are sharing their knowledge. And you are I think you're just embarking on your public work, or ministry is, to me, is not necessarily church ministry anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Ministry means the work that you do to administer to the needs of other people.
Exactly.
And that you've gone through some stuff, and I'm glad we didn't give that any credence, because as I said to you at the end, I believe, of our conversation a couple of weeks ago, um after we talked about what you had gone through, I said, well, you have these abilities, then you decide the outcome.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
The outcome is not outside of you. The outcome is within you, and it is with all of us. But a lot of times we're always looking, for answers, because we kind of have, we doubt, even though we
Mm-hmm.
might be able to do some amazing things for other people. But when it comes to, us and what we forget that those
Right.
abilities also work for us. And so but that thing, I still believe that the answer and the outcome for that, and if it hasn't already come, is within your power,
Mm-hmm.
within your ability. And I'm looking at the comments, and
Mm-hmm.
they have been very, very good comments. And yes, I think, okay, I'm going. Like I said, I dub you the incidental shaman, the
Okay.
the nature whisperer. Like they have horse whisperers and whatever
Right.
horse, yeah, all those things. And that your ability, I'm pretty sure, that as people reach out to you, you are going to you have so much within you intuitively, that you're going to be giving people the answers, or you report. And I don't like to say that, because it's counter to what I just said, but you'll be directing people
Mm-hmm.
to find the answers within, but you'll be doing it with the wisdom and the knowledge that you've gained over all of these years of your life, and your
Mm-hmm.
connectedness to nature and the all that is all. I believe that. I believe you're going to be, your talks and your sharing of this story is going to be in demand. I see. I don't know. It might have to be an independent film, but there needs to be a movie about a
Mm-hmm.
2.5-year-old boy, a 4-year-old boy sitting in the air, having a conversation, with the
Mm-hmm.
most high within, and being able to have these amazing abilities. Especially if it's based on a true story.
Right. Right. And I kind of ran, the book scenario and to different, book producers, and they right away they suggested, what, Netflix would love this. I said, really? And they're like, give us a number, Blake. What do you think this story might be worth? I said, really, honestly, I said anywhere from 25 to 35 million dollars just for a book. And he's like, you know what? That's not that's not undoable. He goes, I could see that and more. And so with that being said, could I just share one of the stories, just one of the stories that I do have from the book that I do, the parts that I do have written?
Sure. And
Okay.
that's what we'll go out with.
It's going to be, it's not going to be anything, funny. It's not going to be anything. It's just going to be really deep. And and the whole book that I'll be writing will have this kind of, these type of stories in it. So here we go. So when I was I'd say about 4.5, 5 years old. Yeah, about four. Um, I was left at home during that time. They would make me sit at home sometimes to watch the pot of beans. That was my job. So sometimes when they would catch me, they would make me sit and watch the pot of beans. And my job was to keep them stirred and not let them stick and not let them burn and not let the flame die out before they got fully cooked. And so my dad's brother, who I am actually named after, and he went by Juan. My uncle Juan was he was just a man, just a rebel, just a rebel without a cause, just torture everything and anything. And so he found out that I was being left at home during harvest season, part of the morning part of the day to take care of the beans. And so he made it his best. He didn't work much. He was constantly just a drunk. And so he made it his best to make our life a living hell. And so he started coming around the house, finding out that I was home alone, and he would come around the house and catch me home alone, and he would do things like take dried, peppers that we were drying, and he would break them in half and shove that pepper into my eye, or he would take a green one and shove it into my eye, or just beat me for the fun of it. And so, after a while, I put my thinking hat on and I was like, wait a minute, I need to be hiding. I need to be vigilant. If in case my uncle wants to come by and torture me, I can see him coming ahead of schedule and I can go hide. Well, so I started doing that and he wasn't able to find me. He would come in and I would be hiding. And so that went on for a little while where he couldn't find me. Then I got too comfortable with the whole thing of not being caught. And then I just dropped my guard down one day and I nonchalantly just hung around stirring the beans like no big deal. And something told me to just kind of crack the door open and look out, see if anybody's coming. Well, when I did that, my uncle was hiding behind the wall. And he reached out and grabbed my arm. And he started laughing, hysterically like a possessed person. And everything's in Spanish, but I'll tell it to you in English. And I'll try not to use so many good cuss words as he did. And he told me, he says, you know what, you little piece of dung, he says, today you're going to die. He says, and no one is going to be here to watch you die. He goes, but when they come home, you will be dead because you're a piece of crap. And I was like, okay, well, what's he going to do? Is he going to put more peppers in my eyes? What's he going to beat me up? What's he going to do? Well, this time he came in with a rope. He came in with a lasso. And he had me by the arm. He already had made a noose for it. And he stuck that noose around my neck. And in Mexico, we have silos built into the houses. That way we can, we eat the tortillas. We got to have the corn. So these silos can be anywhere, 8 feet around, 10, 20 feet tall. And this particular silo was made out of it had posts around it that were bamboo, and they were jade at the bottom to hold the load of the silo. And so the whole time he's putting this lasso around my neck, he's laughing profusely, and he's repeating everything that he's told me already, that I would die that day, that nobody would be there to care, and that whenever somebody got home, I would just be there hanging. And so he threw that rope up over the horn, over the top of the silo, and he looped it down, and he started pulling me up. And my feet took off the ground. Here I am, 4.5, 5 years old, and I'm being pulled up with my feet dangling in the air. And the only thing I can think to myself is, what can possibly possess a human to do that to somebody? And he tied it up. He raised me all the way to the top. He tied it off. And I was struggling for air. And he walked out of the door. He closed the door. And I'm sitting there struggling for air. And I'm talking to God. I said, God, what am I going to do? What can I do? And God kind of nonchalantly goes, Jose, you're so light and so little that you can pull yourself up by the rope. I said, oh, really? So the very rope that I was hanging on off of, I reached up and I just pulled myself up till I got to the very top of the silo. And I used the same rope that was hanging down tight at the bottom, and I just used it to shimmy down. I landed on the floor. I untied the rope, the lasso from the bottom of the horn of the silo, and I went and hid up underneath it. So the beans were burnt, and my aunt and uncle got home, and they couldn't find me. And my aunt kept calling me, and I said, I'm here. She goes, where are you at? I said, I'm down here underneath the silo. What are you doing underneath the silo? I said, well, I'm hiding from my uncle, and I said, he was torturing me. I said, he hung me, he left me to die, and he walked out. And so for telling that story, I got to dance with a belt. I got to dance with a switch. And so when that happened, it really, let me know that the people around me were not there for me. They were there for their own interest, and they were there taking the hard-earned money that my mom was sending to us and pocketing the money, drinking it, and buying vehicles that they didn't even have any clue on how to start or drive. So, but that's one of the stories. And the whole book, that particular book, is based on stories just like that would include me, would include family members, would include bystanders, doctors, stuff like that. And
that's heart. It just touches me that you went through that, but you were given that, you were, yeah, I don't even know what to say. And I see, like somebody said, it's still affecting you after all these
it
years.
does.
Like you're a survivor. You're a survivor, and your story is such, all of these things have made you stronger. All these things have given you more, like there are children that have been tortured in other ways, like maybe, actually, if you will, they've been had things happen and they split, in their personalities, or
Yeah.
they fracture, and they get abilities. Well, you were tortured just in a different way. And so that same thing, it's brought out, that the other aspects of who you are. Unfortunately, it's there are people that still are that don't survive half of what you've gone through. So I believe that your story is one that, will be, you're touching a nerve of some people, because there's some people even listening here that have had very tortured childhoods. For the very ones that you think are here, should be here to protect you and love you and care for you and nurture you, are the ones that take advantage of you. But nevertheless, and in spite of it all, you are a survivor. And that's what I believe is the most important thing. And I see, Sister Cuz, I said, we love you. She, so we, a lot of times the ones that, and even that, everybody signs up to play the role. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? The antagonist and the protagonist. So those so-called relatives were just the antagonists in your story. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
they're playing the role. But
You,
I wanted to ask you, do you have a publisher?
I do not. I looked into it. Everybody wants me to send them $4 and $5 and $8,000, and
So
with everything,
I want to connect you with my sister, um, my sister Cynthia Martinell, who has Noble Seven Publishing.
Mhm,
She
mhm.
just matter of fact, she just did the forward in the book for Richard Smith's The Moor and the Mason and the Alien. I think is the,
Mhm.
the something, his third book that came out, and she's got her own publishing company, and so
Okay.
we'll connect you to
Sure,
her.
definitely.
And
And
she's
I'd like to say something to the audience. Somebody, you know, they can say, well, if this person has gone through this type of hell, you know, what kind of a life have they lived? What kind of things have they done? I've not lived a perfect life. I'll tell you that. I've not walked on water, maybe lately. But with that being said, I have gone and actually sought psychological help and evaluation. And I actually went and did the missions work up in Alaska, and I had to get evaluated there, and I also had to be evaluated up there in Alaska. And the lady that evaluated me there in Alaska, I mean, by the second and third session, she's like, she was, for somebody who has gone through so much, she goes, you can probably read a person as soon as they walk into the door. I said, you're absolutely right. She goes, and this is a gift. She goes, I want you to take it and use it. She goes, but not only that, she goes, any other person, she goes, 9 times out of 10, any other person would have gone through this, would have died during that process, or would have one come out a murderer, a thief, a robber, a rapist, you name it. They said because of all the mental anguish and everything that was put on you at a very young age. She says that no man could stand it. No man could live through that.
no.
And I said, you know what? You're absolutely right. I said, I'll take that. So yeah, I've gotten psychological help and evaluations with it. Um, does it change things? No, it doesn't change anything. It just lets me know that yeah, I got evaluated, and somebody says, okay, well, you're not a crackpot,
No,
basically. But
you're not.
other than that, I mean, I operate 24/7. I I go to work. I do everything else everyone does. So
For those that didn't catch it at the beginning, um, he is a stonemason by trade, by
mhm,
profession. He's
mhm.
so stonemason in Michigan, the Michigan territory. But we are out of time. We went over a little bit, but that's not. It was really good. This
Okay.
was very, very good, and we thank you so much for sharing your truth and your life with us, because it's not easy. I mean, it's not like you're sharing all these wonderful stories of lollipops and rainbows. These were difficult times and situations for such a young child. But I could say, and I'm sure the audience will agree, that you became a stellar example of manhood and kindness as a result of the pain that you endured. Now it's your time, I believe, to um, get rewarded, for everything that you've gone through, and to at the same time, share with others who might need to have some support, of what you can offer them, because some people don't have that strength. So again, I want to thank you, and I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna connect you with Cynthia for
Okay.
publishing, and I'm believing really for a book. I mean, a movie rather, a movie.
Sure. Sure.
Here's some. Here's I'm just put. Okay, I'm gonna put a couple comments. Well, here's a comment.
Okay.
Juan, you're so strong. You're so awesome. Thanks for being so transparent. I know your book will be a bestseller. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here's another from Space Boy. He assured me I'm not crazy. Man, thanks, my brother.
Thank you very much. That's awesome.
And there are
That
others,
is
and thank
awesome.
you all. And thank you all for the wonderful. I'm not ignoring you, but all the wonderful comments about my new hairdo, my big chop. Thank you so much. I didn't know how you all were gonna receive me, but like I feel so free and so liberated. I don't know what to do, but in any event, I love you. I love you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Jose, aka
Thank you.
Blake. But we're not even gonna say Blake because you're not bleak, blatch, blatch, whatever those things. You're not that.
That's
But thank
right.
you so much for coming on the show, and we'll talk. We'll talk. Thank you,
Very good.
everyone.
Thank you. Yep.
Yeah,
Thanks, everyone.
thank everyone.
Yep.
Really appreciate you. Really appreciate you. So we're gonna get out of here until next time.
All right.
All righty. Really? Oh shit. Yeah, that's me. Really? Oh shit. Yeah, that's me. Oh shit. Yeah, that's me. Really? Oh shit. Yeah, that's me. Oh shit. Yeah, that's me. Oh shit. Yeah, that's me. Oh shit.